Welcome to the show, All Things Writing. I am your host, Brian the Writer. Let me take you on a journey through my writing life and introduce you to some of the amazing talent that exists in the writing world. Whether you are looking for a little advice or just to catch an interesting interview, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All Things Writing starts now. Welcome, my dear friends, to All Things Writing. As you know, or maybe you don't know, I'm the host of the show and been for about 4 years, I suppose. Started the show. We've just been running with it. It's been great. If you are new to the show, I want to thank you for tuning in. This makes a huge difference to me. It warms my heart that people still tune into the show, and I still get cards and letters saying, thank you very much. We love the show. That's fantastic. Now, if you are new to the show, I'm going to recommend you go back and listen to some of the older podcasts. There's a lot of really cool things in there. I did a whole episode on how to leave book reviews and all kinds of things. So, lots of cool stuff. Go back and check it out. If you have not hit that like button, please hit that like button. It's fantastic. Also, don't forget, hit the like button on whatever subscription service, whether you're listening on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or whatever the case. Hit likes, leave a review. It's not going to hurt you. I promise. It's painless. Now, also, I'm going to highly recommend you head over to my YouTube channel and follow me there as well. Not only do I post the interviews, the recordings there, but I also do a short 5-minute program called 5 Minutes with Brian. Literally, it's what it sounds like. It's 5 minutes with Brian. Just off the cuff, whatever I happen to think of that day is what I talk about. I even did one where I was probably a little hammered on moonshine. That was a great video, or so I'm told. Now, to find that, all you have to do is go to YouTube and look up at Brian the Writer. Remember, that's Brian with a Y, so no spaces, at Brian the Writer. It's just that easy. No matter what you're listening me on, I truly appreciate it. I haven't talked about it for a little while, but right now, in the top 5 spots for listens to the last 10 episodes, we have Fort Myers, Florida. I don't actually remember ever Fort Myers showing up in those top 5 spots before, so that's pretty cool. Now we have also in second place, we have Oakville, Ontario. Oakville, they're always there. Ashburn, Virginia, thank you. That's the next town over from me. Amsterdam, North Holland, still also figuring very prominently, and Frankfurt, Germany. So doing pretty well in Europe at the moment. I love it. That's really impressive if you think about this being a worldwide podcast that reaches all the way across the globe. If you've heard me say it before, I know you have, actually. My goal in life is to bring you some of the most interesting people in the world. Through a chance encounter with a mutual friend, I was introduced to my next guest. And it was that recommendation that we should probably get together and talk for a bit that kind of intrigued me. So I jumped at the chance. I looked at the website. I stalked him for a little bit. I set up a few cameras around his house. And of course, I interrogated a few of his friends. Only one with torture. Only one. Not like 3 that other time, but we'll let that go for now. So he has a pretty impressive background to begin with. And I really like to bring on the best and brightest and certainly people way more intelligent than me. So let's welcome to the show our next guest, Tom Lucas. Tom, thank you for coming on the show.
Brian, it's so cool to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure and my honor. I'm always honored when people say, sure, I'll come on. I mean, to me, that's so cool. So cool.
Talk about writing and books with a fellow writer. That's my life, man.
About the only thing I'm missing is a fine Chianti.
Yeah. I have LaCroix today.
LaCroix is
sparkling water.
So LaCroix is often my drink of choice. However, I don't drink it while I'm doing podcasts because then I end up burping.
That's fair. I just enjoy that it has an essence.
I do. We like an essence.
As it says on the can. There's an
Yes,
essence.
it is an essence. So I have either water or vodka because
Hmm.
vodka looks like water. Could
And I
very well be.
believe in the Slavic languages, it means water of life. So
Indeed,
there you
indeed.
go.
Well, actually, it is water, but
Okay.
because vodka probably doesn't help your voice at all. So you and I share something in common. You mention on your website. I did stalk you a little bit.
Cool.
You mentioned that sort of this post apocalyptic landscape that is the Midwest, and truly, it's sort of that post World War II gutted looking thing that we both grew up in. You being from Detroit, and me being from South Chicago. How on earth did you ever go from being in the Motor City to ending up in Florida?
Okay. There's sort of the long story or the short story. I'm not sure which one to go with, but yeah, I did. I grew up in Detroit, and I spent most of my formative years living in a neighborhood called Hamtramck, which is right in the center of Detroit, and it was predominantly a Polish neighborhood after World War II. All the Poles came over, started working in the auto plants, and it looks a lot like Queens. So
Mm-hmm.
if anyone knows what the Queens neighborhoods look like, it's pretty much the same thing. And I've had a lot of jobs, but I did start writing pretty early at 19, writing movie reviews for Detroit area newspapers.
Oh,
And then
cool.
I took a job in a theater doing live show production. And that, if you stand still in Detroit long enough, you end up working for auto companies. And
That is true.
I started working in what basically automotive sales training, writing scripts for these trainings, the technical manuals, and all those, and then going on the road with them. And I did that for some time. And then when I left that company, I took a marketing job in Florida because I had some mutual friends or associates that they were going to open up a sports bar concept as a franchise, and it was, if you're ready for this, is Hooters meets an Italian restaurant meets a sports bar. I don't know why it didn't work out.
I can't think of any reason that that could not possibly work, except it being a horrible idea. But other than that, I think hmm,
Yeah, at the time I didn't know, but I came down to Florida, which for what I thought would be a short amount of time, and then when that fell through, I had this sort of a soul searching moment where I was like, I don't think I want to go back into marketing. I'm very tired of being a technical writer. I had sort of rediscovered my love for creative writing and literature. I was an English major
hmm,
in undergrad. And I decided to stay in Florida because there was a teacher shortage. With my English degree, I could get a temporary certificate. And I ended up teaching high school for 5 years and then moving up to higher ed. And it just kind of just stayed because everything was working out. I don't know
hmm.
if Florida was ever really like a choice for me, but when things are going good, you might as well stick with them. And my wife is a therapist and her licensure is down here. And she's from New York. We just
Hmm.
decided to make it a go. And I don't miss scraping ice off the windshield, my friend.
Yeah, I moved to Northern Virginia, and I can honestly say I don't miss those winters.
Oh my goodness.
Not, it's awful.
Chicago, Detroit winters,
Yeah,
brutal.
it's cold and it's wet and it's oh yuck. Anyway, don't want to do that. I'm having flashbacks over here. Uh,
Yeah.
so now you do something really cool that I've only recently been playing with. You do
Okay.
script writing as well.
Yeah.
Um, so how did you end up finding your way into script writing?
Okay. So, in terms of script writing, just, so that I'm representing myself correctly, it's more in the marketing or commercial work area as opposed to creative
Mhm.
screenwriting. Yes, I do have some scripts in a drawer, and I have some treatments for some pretty wild stuff
Mhm.
that, should something happen, I'm ready to go in the room and throw some ideas around. But when I did settle in Orlando and started working in higher ed as a teacher, I taught creative writing for 10 years before moving on to an administrative role. Um, I had found a local company through some friends that needed script writers, and at least one. And I proceeded over about 8 years to write about 300 scripts for 3 to 5 minute videos that either explain a concept or work as a commercial for some kind. So there was some pulling of heartstrings and trying to create, various effects and things like that. And so that's the kind of script writing that
Sure.
that I did. Now, the initial question was advice for script writing, or
Well, I mean, just generally how you find your way into script writing, because
okay,
one of the things that I have come to sort of think about a bit lately is, we talk about writing, we talk about writing novels and short stories and kind of the creative end of things, but a lot of times you find your way into these sort of commercial gigs on the side.
the way I found the job was, um, and I used to tell my students, I'm just a horrible example of someone in terms of how do you find a job, because um, I just kind of fall into opportunities. But the basis for all that is that I'm a very accountable guy. I meet deadlines. I listen to people carefully. I show up for the work, and I'm reasonably cool to work with. I'm not a problem personality or some kind of, combative genius in my own mind type. I like
Mm-hmm.
collaborating with people. I like being around people. It's why I got into teaching, and it's been word of mouth for, over 20 years when it comes to work outside of the day job with the paycheck and those expectations. So I guess for anyone who wanted to find their way into script writing, first of all, you have to put yourself out there and socialize and go to events where people want to meet writers or fellow writers, or just establish yourself as people knowing that you are a writer, because people will get into a bind where they're like, we need a writer. Does anyone know a writer? And that's kind of how it works. So at least that's how it worked for me. And my students would always ask me, what do I do? How do I get out there? And I said, well, you know, um, there's really no one path, but the main thing is to produce, create, be visible, connect with people, and hopefully those opportunities will come your way.
And that is so similar to what I've told people all along: is you have to be out there, you have to establish yourself to make people know who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like kind of a lot of writers I know are really quite hesitant. They tend to be more internal or introverted people. And so and I respect that. It's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there. That's why they choose writing as creative expression, because writing it's not like playing guitar on stage,
No.
right? You write what you write alone, quietly in some dark room, and then people enjoy your work with you not present.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they write something like a book review or a comment somewhere that lets you know that they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's I can see why a lot of people who don't like to be particularly um, extroverted turn to writing.
Yeah. So write those book reviews, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate them.
Oh, they're everything to the independent writer, and to established writers as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not anyone's inclination when they finish a book to be like, I have to tell that writer right now how much I enjoyed this book. But man, even a sentence or two makes such a difference um, in terms of the algorithm and all those other things out there.
Yeah. But we unfortunately live in the era of the algorithm. All
Yeah,
hail technology.
I, for one, welcome my robot overlords. There,
Yeah,
it's
if they can take some of the other tasks off my plate, I would be eternally grateful to their little robotic minds.
for sure.
So now you've written two novels.
Yes,
I'm Pax
Titanus.
Titanus and Leather to the Corinthians.
Yes,
Leather to the Corinthians,
yes,
not letter to the Corinthians. It is Sunday, and I
correct.
did go to church this morning, however. So I
Okay.
read both those descriptions of both those books, and they strike me as being novels that are written by someone who has essentially decided that they're going to write a story that's going to intrigue themselves. Now, I always advise people, hey, if you're going to write, you have to love what you write first. So, is that how you saw these two novels?
Oh, for sure. Um, Leather to the Corinthians. The title really sort of explains what the spirit of the book is. And you're of the age that you probably recall or have heard of the 1972 Chrysler Cordoba commercial that had Ricardo Montalban. And one of the selling features was rich Corinthian leather,
Yes.
um, which is not a thing.
It's not even a
It's
thing now.
it's not a thing, and so that kind of gives a hint as to what the book is about, which is a really high concept, absurdist parody of all the sort of major pillars that represent society: religion, um, media, big business, so on and so forth. And it was one of those things where I'd written a short story and I had enjoyed writing it so much more than anything I had written prior that I thought I want to stay in this voice and in this mode and see what I can produce from it. And in terms of like getting a book out there in the world, it was a terrible choice for me because it's super weird fiction. It's somewhat experimental in that there's a narrative, but you kind of have to flip around the book to discover what the narrative is.
Yeah.
And the characters are more representations of ideas than people. And so it was a pretty hard book to put on someone's shelf, although when people read it and reach out to me, especially folks in the UK, because I think a lot of my sense of humor is informed by great British comedy.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
love British comedy.
that and the comic book 2000 AD and the kind of satirical work they did in that book over the years is really informative. But one person said to me that they felt like it was as if William Burroughs' Naked Lunch had been written by Douglas Adams, and I'll take it. So that's Leather to the Corinthians, which also follows another great tip, kids, is title your book something so unique that no Google search will find anything else. Books that are called like Love or Desperation, or well, you can get away with it if you're Stephen King, but I think you should be Google friendly with your book titles.
Yeah, yeah. Crimson Tassels, one of my novels is it's great because it's such a unique title. There's really no questioning that you found the right one. How about Pax the first one?
Pax Titanus.
So
That was my second book,
so I have to tell you the reason I'm having a problem with the title, and it just occurred
right?
to me, is because when I do my notes, sometimes I do them with a voice to text feature on my
Yeah,
computer, and for some reason it spelled it out Pax Titanus.
phenomenal.
I have
That's not
no. It's amazing.
it's not wrong. So Pax Titanus is a romp of a book. It's written very much in the spirit of like the original heavy metal animated film. It's bawdy. It has a lot of rude humor. It's about a alien gladiator in a tournament fighting to save his son from kidnappers, and it was a lot of fun world building. The editor from Eraserhead Press that put that book out had also invoked Douglas Adams again in the introduction, saying that she found it to be a lot like a Douglas Adams kind of book with a lot more um, R-rated humor. And, and the reviews reflect that. Some
Hmm.
people were very much turned off by it and found it to be very juvenile and silly, and other people were like, "That's exactly the kind of reading experience I'm down for." And I will say that my mother has read it several times because my mom is just great like that, and she does wish I would write some family drama where a family is torn apart by some secret, and then there's some kind of healing. And I'm like, "Ma, I'm just not that kind of writer." Um, some days I wish I was, but to go back to your original question, the books that are most memorable to me are the ones where at the end of it, I feel like I had fun reading it. Robert Asprin's Myth Adventures series, any Michael Moorcock, a lot of Sword and Sorcery. I just feel that, and a lot of Stephen King. Like just
Hmm.
at the end of it, I think, wow, man, that was such a fun read.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, write the things that you would read yourself, and I think you'll be happy. I see writers out there who have thousands of reviews on Amazon, and they tend to be, and I don't mean to disparage anyone, kind of generic fantasy book sets or sci-fi book sets, and they feel very uninspired to me, as if that person could very easily be selling soap. They're just trying to hit the algorithm, and I wonder at the end of the day, do you actually enjoy the books that you write? Maybe they do. Could be me being terribly judgmental, but at the end of the day, I just want to write things that I would read myself.
So, how do you end up marketing books that fit? And I have read several books recently that don't fit into really any one particular category, and you could just tell the writer loved what they were writing. Um, how do you end up from an indie perspective? How are you marketing those things? What tips would you have for somebody who's trying to do that kind of thing?
Well, there's a lot of writers in my socials, and writers write. They're probably not your best market for selling books.
Right.
Um, there's so many friends that I have that have books out there. It's very hard. If I were to buy everyone and read everyone, I would probably carry it through to my retirement home, and I'd probably be pretty broke. So, no pressure to fellow writers out there in terms of reading my stuff, but it's about finding readers. And so, I look for where those readers are, and try to promote organically by just engaging with people on social media as a person, not a someone trying to sell books. And anyone who's been sort of trying to promote their work that's out there, you'll approve a connection with a writer that you don't know, because they're a writer and maybe they have some mutual friends. And 2 seconds later, they're sending you a link as a direct message to their book.
Hmm.
And I just cry foul. Like that's so, um, I want to use the word crass to
Yeah,
me.
that's the way to get quickest way to get me to unfriend you and block you
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
eternity.
Brian.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are right there with that. So just kind of try to find people, and for a guy like me who writes kind of weird, offbeat things, um, it's not there's I have a day job. I'm not
Mhm.
a full-time writer, and I don't even know if I necessarily enjoy that. I work in education, and I like the work quite a bit, but I'm kind of like it's kind of a lifelong process. People still just Letter to the Corinthians came out it came out in 2012. So what is that? That's 11 years ago.
Yeah, 11 years ago.
Yeah, 11 years ago, and it's still like occasionally it still pops up, or someone will reach out to me or things like that. And Pax Titanus came out in 2014, so it's actually been quite a while since I've had another book out. I've had a number of stories published in anthologies since then, but um, I think it's just going to be one of those things where, as I continually sort of find the sort of people that enjoy the kind of books I enjoy, that over time,
Hmm.
you know, that audience will grow. But I guess to kind of bring it back to the point is figure out where your readers are and where they like to hang out, and be
Hmm.
there. There's so much choice out there. It's very, very hard to stand out in the noise. It's sort of the opposite problem. In the old days, there were a handful of people who could get published. There was a lot of gatekeeping, and now anybody can put any kind of art out there with very little barrier. But so is everyone else. So you have to find ways to stand out. So, that's I guess that's my advice to folks.
Yeah. You mentioned short stories just a moment ago. Do you
Yeah,
have a preference in writing long short form?
I think at the end of the day, I like writing books. I think I prefer marathon running
Hmm.
to 5Ks
Yeah.
because I guess I don't like myself at some level. 'Cause books are so hard, man.
Books are very hard to write.
They're hard, but um, I do have many short stories I've written over the years that I enjoy that I think eventually I will package together because um, due to the somewhat ephemeral nature of the digital world, some stories aren't available anymore. The
Hmm.
links are dead. And with indie publishing, sadly, some publishers come and go, and those stories are no longer available. And I think there are some really solid ones out there that people who enjoy my writing would like. So that's coming. I think short stories are good when you just really kind of have a single idea that you're really trying to hang on to, as opposed to investigating themes,
Yeah.
or if you write genre, doing serious world building.
Yeah. I always thought uh, be interesting to just write, just like you said, a thematic sort of anthology series of short stories. But like you, I prefer that long marathon run of a novel writing. I mean, but it brings us to a point. You brought it up. Writing is kind of a tough gig. It really is. Anybody who wants to be a novelist, I advise them to seriously think about why they want to be a novelist. Maybe have their head examined, talk to a therapist, take some drugs. I don't know,
Right.
but you have to consider why you have that goal. Um, Now, you recently were in. You have some things released, or a story released in the Writer's Path. Path,
Yes.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, can you explain sort of what the Writer's Path project was, and where you fit in that?
Sure. So there's two editions. There was the 2022 Writer's Path, and the 2023 Writer's Path is the new one. And it is both are free on Smashwords as ebooks if anyone cares to download them, and they're for a very small price on Amazon because Amazon won't let you have something for free unless it's in their system. So, and all proceeds to those books go to various literacy organizations that are out there doing good work. So, I taught in the creative writing department at Full Sail for about 10 and a half years before I earned my doctorate actually at the beginning of this year, and I
Oh,
found
congratulations!
thank you very much. So, yeah, I am a doctor, just not that kind of doctor, and I moved up to a more administrative role. So after 18 years in the classroom, I finally moved on to something a little bit further up the food chain. But anyway, Wes Loker, who's a phenomenal, funny writer that I recommend anyone go and check out his graphic novels. Unit 44 is sort of his take off on X Files meets like Storage Wars. It's about them finding strange things in storage units and aliens invading, and it's very fun. And Wes did graduate from that creative writing program a number of years ago, and he's a very successful freelance writer.
Okay.
He has a two-book series on the Ultima um, computer game and its history and its impact on the early days of sort of online gaming.
Hmm.
So anyway, real smart guy, and he wanted to put together something that would inspire students that were currently in the creative writing program, or really any writer. because what he did is he solicited essays from graduates of the program where they could tell the story of what happened after they walked out into the street with a creative writing degree, of all things, and where it took them. And so for this year's edition, Wes asked me if I would write the introduction to it, which I was deeply honored. Um, I do miss being in that creative writing program because it's a writing program, and what could be
Sure.
cooler than that. But it was time for me to kind of grow. So that's basically the writer's path, and it's eight. This year is 8 essays that are both reality checks, come to Jesus moments, and inspiring all at the same time.
Yeah, I think that is I think that's where I began sort of this question about writing being kind of a tough. It's sort of a tough row to hoe. Nobody getting up in the morning and saying I want to be a professional novelist. Okay, sure. Good luck with that. But I mean, there is a way to do that. What advice would you have for people who wanted to pursue ultimately becoming a novelist and maybe paying their bills that way?
Well, my publisher for my book that's coming up, the thing that he always tells people is marry well.
What is it? The
Yeah,
old saying: "How do you make a lot of money in writing? Start with even more money."
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Marry well. So first of all, and this is what I wrote in my introduction to the Writer's Path this year, is that um, it has like any true art. And if you look at the art of anyone that you truly admire, whether they're a classic visual artist like a painter or a musician or things like that, um, unless you're somehow anointed, success is never promised.
yeah,
And history is filled with incredibly talented artists that we have never heard of, you know?
true.
And so you have to want to do it because there's just something inside you that it would haunt you if you didn't. Is kind of what I wrote there. Could I quit? Is writing fun? I've never enjoyed the actual process of writing. I love having written, and I will say that to my wife, and she's like, I'm sure some people really enjoy the actual writing part. And I'm like, well, I haven't met any yet, but statistically, I'm sure you're correct. It's kind of like having homework every day for the rest of your life when you're a
Yeah,
writer. And you have to be alone, you have to really think, and you have to really, do all these things. Um, and yeah, again, success isn't guaranteed, and there is no set path. Um, Plumbers don't lay awake at night wondering if they'll ever plumb, if everyone will appreciate their plumbing, um, that kind of a thing. They have a
yeah.
lot of security in that. Uh, Writers do not. So you have to really um, just have a passion that cannot be sated unless you do it. And you also have to get with the fact that you may or may not have tremendous success with it. You know, um, lots of people go into basketball, but there's only one LeBron James or Michael Jordan. Or in writing, I think of someone like Stephen King, who is ridiculously prolific and is someone who can sit down and crank out 6 to 8 thousand words in a session, which I've never been able to do. And there's just some extraordinary talents out there. So I think you have to be able to find satisfaction in your art at a smaller level. And if the gods of writing smile down upon you, you may find that you've told a story that people really love. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Uh, I have said, you hit upon something that I've brought up before. I measure success by whether or not somebody has come up to me and said, "I read this, I enjoyed it." That to me is success. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I completely agree. Brian, my first two books have been pirated a lot.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, I don't bear it any I don't get worked up about it because it's the nature of the internet. And I guess at some level, I'm just happy people are reading,
Yeah.
but I stumbled upon a pirating website. A Google alert sent me there where Leather was um, available for a download. And there was actually a comment thread under the download link. And there were all these people talking about the book. And um, the fact that it was pirated and it led to that conversation was enough for me, man.
Yeah.
It actually was. It was a pretty coll day.
Yeah.
I didn't even mind it at all. It would be cool if people paid for the book because maybe I could do this for a
Yeah.
full-time thing. But at least people are out there reading it and it has is having some kind of impact. You know.
Yeah, we would like to be paid for our work. Please do not download pirated books, ladies and gentlemen. Don't do
Yes,
that.
I never have.
Yes.
I take great pride in being able to pay for
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Um, so please do not pirate.
Yes. Yes. I get paid enough that I can afford to buy other books. Please don't steal other people's art. Now, along those same lines, what would you say? What would you define as sort of your writing philosophy?
My writing philosophy.
Hmm?
Well, what's yours?
My writing philosophy can be summed up this way: I want to be the ultimate airport author.
Oh,
I
cool.
I want to be the guy that as you're walking through the airport on your way to that transatlantic flight, you pick up the book off the shelf and you read it on the plane flight and you get to where you're going and you're like, that's fun. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's a great philosophy to have. Mine is, um, I want to write books that are incredibly entertaining and are unlike anything else someone has read. And they can say that, wow, that was a cool book. I had a lot of fun reading it, and really, I don't know what to compare it to.
Hmm.
So, um, which is tough for marketing, because
It
it's hard
is.
to find comparables. I have to tend to do those this meets that kind of
Yeah.
thing when I'm pitching a book. But when when I hear that people, will tell me, I laughed out loud so many times reading this book, and I never laugh out loud when I'm reading. I really enjoy that so very much.
Yeah. I think that's almost, one of those ways that I think we as writers get paid back in almost intangible currency in a way.
Mm.
Those kinds of comments, those kinds of feelings make us want to keep writing.
Oh, for sure. Anytime it's been a while since either Leather or PAX has had a new review, but
Mhm.
occasionally people will message me on my website or just say, man, I just had so much fun with that,
Mhm.
and I think that's where I'm at, going back, to influences Douglas Adams
Oh
in the
yeah.
Hitchhiker's Guide books. Um, I came upon him at a fairly early age, and I was like, I didn't realize a book could be fun like this. In school, they teach people that reading is about reading serious books, often written by dead people, and so
Yes.
therefore they're important. And a lot of people will say, "Well, I don't really read," and that's because someone made them think that if they haven't read Moby Dick, then they're not a reader. And the fact is a lot more people read than they even realize because
Yeah.
that's not reading is about just getting into books that or any other kind of printed literature really that you're into.
Yeah. It's sort of like Hemingway. I don't know where do you stand on Hemingway as a writer?
Where do I stand
Yeah.
as a writer on Hemingway? I haven't read all of his work.
Hmm.
I have read a couple of the big ones. I appreciate the lean, concise style of his writing. That's where I tend to go as a writer.
Hmm.
In no way is Hemingway an influence.
Hmm.
I came upon him kind of later on in life. Um, but I did want to read him because I think you need to know the history of your art form,
Sure.
and when things are up there. So I really appreciate that sort of his sort of style. Definitely not a purple prose kind of guy, but when someone like, say, Michael Shea, um, fantasy writer from a ways back, he could work purple prose like nobody's business. It was really quite beautiful to read, but in no way would it, mine tends to also come from my initial start as a writer in journalism,
Mhm.
and journalism is get to the point.
Yeah.
And so my style tends to be that way as well. So I don't have a strong position on Hemingway, but I find him very readable.
Okay. And it's and I forget what spurred this question, but I was thinking I just can't stand reading Hemingway. It's the bare bones style. It makes me
Yeah.
I can't do that. I need something almost in between, in between the kind of two extremes. I love Douglas Adams. I often say that the way he describes the engine on the Heart of Gold spacecraft is one of the things that made me want to write,
Oh,
because
fantastic.
it's such an absurd idea, but he delivers it in such a way that makes you go, why not? Sure, we'll go with that. And you accept it, and it in all of its wonderful absurdity, and it's just beautiful. So, brings me to my question
Hmm.
about your upcoming novel here, The Mystery of Grandma's Half Eaten Pie of Despair.
Yes.
The cover itself was enough to make me go, okay, this is intriguing now. So, what can you tell us about that without giving away too many spoilers, of course?
All right. So the full title is, so you can add it to your Amazon wish list, folks. It's Research Randy and the Mystery of Grandma's Half-Eaten Pie of Despair. And the idea that I came up with initially was, um, what if I took a kid detective like Encyclopedia Brown, which, by the way, I read all the Encyclopedia Brown books when I was a kid, and I watched Scooby Doo, and I loved
As
trying to
did I,
solve the
yeah.
mystery, right? So Encyclopedia
Mm-hmm.
Brown. And I
Yep.
said, what if I took Encyclopedia Brown? It's not Encyclopedia Brown's Research Randy. Let's be clear, it's not Encyclopedia Brown, but
Don't want to get sued.
right. And what if we dropped him into some Lovecraftian terribleness? What would that look like, and how would he navigate that? And that's essentially it. If when people ask to say it's Encyclopedia Brown versus Cthulhu. Now, in writing the book, I mimicked the style of a middle grade or uh, younger side of YA horror book. You know, a little bit like Encyclopedia Brown, or a little bit like Goosebumps, and things like that, because I was trying to mimic the voice of a writer that had written the book. It was
Sure.
there's a sort of a meta frame story on top of it, and in doing so, I kind of wrote a middle grade YA horror book. And it's kind of an accident because it's really meant for people who know Lovecraft's work fairly well, because there's a lot of Easter eggs. I have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fun with Lovecraftian references in there. But also, it could be gateway Lovecraft
Yeah.
for the 12, 13-year-old in your life who enjoys spooky, creepy things. So it kind of works for readers at different ages if they know even a little bit about Lovecraft. I think that doesn't spoil the book too much, but hopefully that's an intriguing enough description for folks that
I
they
am
want to click on it.
I'm absolutely in love with this idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've completely hooked me with just the idea, because it is kind of fun. When you think of Encyclopedia Brown being dropped into these more dire circumstances, I think that would be a good time. So now the most important question I have that I ever ask on the show is, where can people find your stuff?
Okay, well, like most authors, my books are plenty on Amazon. So, um, you can always go to Amazon to find that. Also, I have my own website is room1331.com, and you can go there, and it has links to all my books, as well as some links to some of my shorter works that are out there and media that I have done. So, Brian, you'll be finding a spot on my website soon enough.
Aw.
Yes. I have Facebook page, Tom Lucas Author, Instagram, Tom Lucas Author, Twitter or X or whatever it ends up being. I'm not really too active on there. I just kind of lurk. I'm waiting for the the atomic dust to finally settle. That's Read Tom Lucas, and I'm also on Goodreads as well, so you can look up Tom Lucas there. Tom Lucas is a fairly common name, but if you look for the guy that has the weird looking books, I'm the only Tom Lucas with the weird looking books. So, you can find me there on Goodreads as well.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you, Tom, for spending time with us today. It's truly been my pleasure.
Brian, I had a great time, and thanks again.
It's what we do. I love doing it, and I love meeting interesting people. Certainly, people way smarter than I am. So that's the only way you learn, by hanging around with people who are smarter than you, or more clever.
Well,
I don't know.
That's quite a compliment. We'd have to talk a lot longer to find out if I'm really all that smart at all. But anyway, thank you for that. That's very kind.
Well, and to my wonderful listeners, please remember to tune in for the next episodes. I've got some really good interviews coming up, lined up. The month of September in particular, I think we're going to be pretty much chock full. I'm getting interview requests left and right now. I have to sift through all of those, and I know you guys love the interview shows. My audience hates it when I sit there and speak on a podcast for 30 minutes. I know this. They like the interview shows. I'm not hurt. Well, maybe just a little. That's all right. Also, remember to hit that like button and share with your friends. And as always, hit me up on YouTube. You guys know the drill. Leave reviews, all that great stuff. And check out Tom's stuff, please. I know I'm going to be going and checking out that book, Grandma's Pie of Despair, because I think that's going to be just amazing. I personally am a huge fan of reading far and wide. I'm not horror agnostic. I have a soft spot for cozy mysteries of all things, but I also like YA books as well, because I think they have a lot to teach us writers far and wide about the ways to communicate to younger audiences that I think is very useful, very valuable to listen to. On behalf of myself, Brian Nowak, and my guest, Tom Lucas, this has been All Things Writing, signing off. This has been another amazing episode of All Things Writing. If you heard something that got your wheels spinning, check out the links in the show notes. Also, please follow the show and remember to leave those reviews. Those simple acts of kindness mean the world to us. Hop on over to briannowak.com, and that is Brian with a Y, and check out my latest novels. I'm on Amazon or wherever you buy your ebooks. And as a reminder, the music you heard on the show today was used under license from the artist Ryan Ancona. Thanks for listening to the show, and have a blessed day.